This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation.
Time for school.
Hey, School Success Makers. Welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm joined by a new friend out of the great state of Delaware, the head of school, Anthony Urti, who is, like I just said, head of school of Delaware Valley Classical School in Newcastle, Delaware. So I got connected with him, a few months ago, and I heard he was teaching a class at the Association of Classical Christian Schools conference over the summer, which unfortunately was not able to make it to this one this past year. Hopefully I'll be there at the next one. But when I heard about his talk, I was like, you know what? We should just have an episode on that talk, get to know his school and him and his expertise a little bit more. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. But before we do that, I always pass it off to the guest to introduce himself. So Anthony, welcome to the podcast today.
Yeah, Mitchell, great to be with you today. Appreciate it. It's been good to get to know you. As you said, I am the head of school at Delaware Valley Classical School. I've been in this role for about 7 years. And as I like to say, it is a blessing and it is difficult. And I think, from talking to many, many guests, particularly heads of schools, you probably have heard that over and over again. The work is both rewarding and very, very challenging. I have 3 kids at the school. I love being here with my family. The idea that you can kind of have an organic and a whole life that revolves around a particular place and ideals, those being theological ideals, philosophical ideals. It's just really something that I'm thankful to the Lord for. So, I think we're just to tell you a little bit about our school. We're a school of 215 K through 12. We are situated in northern Delaware. And for those of you who do not know Delaware, we are situated between Pennsylvania and Maryland, with a little bit of a border with New Jersey as well. And we actually draw from 4 states, those being Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and of course Delaware. So pretty broad geographic pull based on our location, but love where we're situated. Really love the area. So that's a little bit about me.
All right. You can definitely make the joke then. Like, we're so good that people come across multiple state lines just to come to our school. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's literally true. Right. So, that's literally true. Yeah.
Well, I've never been to Delaware before. Obviously would love to. I've never even been to the Northeast. I know I need to, because I'd love to hit Maine and Vermont and New York and Massachusetts and Connecticut and all this, literally all the areas, but I've never been past DC. Like, I've been to DC and Virginia area. So one day I'll have to go up there. And so I always ask everybody the same question before we really dive in. And I say, hey, if I was to come visit you guys in Newcastle, Delaware, what would you say? Mitchell, you need to eat this and do this to experience Newcastle, Delaware.
That's a good question. We're not known for our culinary delicacies here, so that's a harder question to answer. What I would say, though, is that we are situated within 2 miles of historic Newcastle, so right on the Delaware River, so colonial town, full of a robust history regarding Americans' founding, et cetera. So I would say if you came to visit us, I would want to take you to historic Newcastle. There's a good restaurant there, but again, in terms of actual food and such, anything that we're known for in Delaware, sorry to say, there isn't much.
So just go to McDonald's then? So I should just go to McDonald's?
I'll leave that to you, man.
There's got to be something there, though. Like, what's your favorite local place? If you were to go, I'm going to go get the local, if somebody visits you, you go, you got to go make sure you try this burger from this place or this Philly cheesesteak or something. Like, what's there?
I'll just say fish and chips at Jessup's Tavern in historic Newcastle. How about that?
There we go. All right, I'll take it. I love it.
There you go.
Well, obviously, diving into content, I know you spoke at the ACCS conference. I know it's been now school's in session as we're recording this. It's been months already after that, so it might be a little foggy. But tell me a little bit about what you specifically spoke on, and obviously I'll have some questions for you about that as we dive in.
Yeah, sure. So the title of the talk was The Classical Disconnect, Movement Ideals versus Classroom Realities. It's kind of born of a place, I guess it's twofold. One is wanting to really key in on what am I seeing and what am I hearing from other folks in the classical Christian movement about what they're observing day to day in their classrooms and in their school. And then wrestling with how does that connect to what we espouse as a movement. I'll use the term movement in terms of what we're aiming for in our classical Christian schools. And what I have observed to some degree and what I have heard, again, to some degree, is that there's a little bit of a disconnect there. The disconnect being, we espouse pursuit of truth, goodness, and beauty, but we're not always getting that or seeing that in our students. We mostly have portraits of graduates, and we want to aspire to the attainment of that portrait of a graduate insofar as we can control any of those things in reality. But how are we doing, right? How are we doing in that task? And the idea here is to provoke in all the right kinds of ways. I said this at the talk, and I'll say it here. I love classical Christian education. America needs classical Christian education. We need to continue to refine what we're doing. We need to continue to seek excellence and seek a recovery of that tradition and do it as faithfully as we possibly can in our modern context. So I come as a fan. I come as someone who's passionate about classical Christian education, and that desire to not be complacent in what we're doing, but to seek to kind of elevate is really where the genesis of the talk came from.
So for those that are listening that maybe, let's say, obviously there's so many different types of education. We've had a lot of classical educators on before. Real quick though, if somebody's listening, like, oh man, I've heard of classical, but I'm not really sure exactly what that is. And just like a quick little like elevator pitch type of thing, what would you say, if somebody listening, what is classical education?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to describe it is that we are training kids, students in classical languages. That is a key component. And I think that classical education has been steeped in classical languages, and that is a fundamental aspect of what we're doing at our school. But we're also seeking to educate according to the trivium, the three ways. So the grammar stage, logic stage, and then the rhetoric stage, with rhetoric being the sort of the culmination. Students can communicate well. Students have been steeped in classical books and texts, have learned to think, have learned to process. They've learned to express the knowledge, but we're situating that all within a Christian setting, right? We are concerned about the Christian worldview aspect of this. So we're not just turning over our kids to the pagans. We're saying, hey, there's something to be gleaned here in this pagan literature, but also we need to situate it rightly under scriptures, under God's reign over all things.
Hey, school success makers, Mitchell here. I just want to take a really quick break from the show to give a big, huge shout out to the Herzog Foundation. I absolutely love the Herzog Foundation. I've been friends and partners with them for a couple years now, but we're bringing it to a whole new level. And I'm excited to share that our very own School Success podcast is now featured on the Herzog Foundation Podcast Network. The Herzog Foundation is a powerhouse of resources designed to support schools like yours, from free training events through the Herzog Foundation Institute to their incredible online news publication, The Lion, and of course, our new podcast, Home. They have everything you need to stay informed and inspired. And if you're dreaming of starting your own Christian school or co-op, don't miss their online course, Schoolbox. It's a fantastic resource to help you get started on the right foot. At School Success, we're proud to partner with the Herzog Foundation to bring you these valuable tools and insights. So visit herzogfoundation.com to explore all they have to offer. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on these amazing opportunities for growth and success. And I love all the people over there, and I know you guys will too. So please go check them out, and you won't be disappointed. Now, back to the show. Okay. So, and when you say about the speech, specifically with movement ideals versus classroom realities, are you more so is that saying, I think I heard you right, but tell if I'm wrong. We're going, hey, we're kids are learning this. Students are growing in this area. They're learning in this, but is it actually sticking and is it working, and are we seeing it in another
Yeah.
area as well?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Let me give you an example. If we say that the teacher at a classical Christian school is a mentor or guide, okay, guide to the student, guide to the text, these sorts of things. Are we getting that, or are we seeing more of a sort of modern progressive aspect to how a teacher functions in the classroom, like a manager, an evaluator, someone who's there really to prepare for college? I'll give you another example. If we say, for example, that we desire our students to have a depth, a slow read, that we want them to read text at a deep level, right? Are we getting that, or are we covering curriculum? Are we more interested in the breadth of study than we are in the depth of study? These sorts of things. If we are creating students who love to contemplate the true, the good, and the beautiful, are we actually seeing that expressed in the classroom, or are we getting kids who want to move through this just because they have to get it done, just like I did when I was in high school and earlier in my education, right? These are the sorts of things where we espouse something and then maybe we're not always seeing it. And of course, there's no 100% success rate, right? So that's not the claim, but the claim is to say, how often are we seeing these things? And if we're seeing them often, maybe there's something that we need to think about in terms of our delivery, how we're going about, administering our schools, these sorts of questions that come up because there is this gap between reality and ideal.
Yeah, you're not wanting to raise robots. You're like, where you're like, all right, when you hear this, you say this exact word or this exact thing or whatever, and you wanted them to actually like truly love and understand for themselves what they're learning, so they can actually regurgitate it in a good way of like it's coming naturally from them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's also about changing. I think we're desiring to reach the soul of the student. We're desiring to see students change. We're desiring to see students grow in wisdom and goodness. We're desiring them to understand fundamentally their place in the world and how they ought to relate vertically to their God, but then also how that plays out on the horizontal, how that plays out in personal interactions, how that plays out in their role as citizens, for example. Right, there are ways that this tangibly plays out, so that you're reading the Iliad, but are students internalizing what it means to be virtuous? We're reading these texts not just to say that we've read them; they ought to fundamentally be changing us for the better.
Is there a way to track that in a student so you can see like, all right, you got an A on this test, or you did this thing, you can track like that stuff. But if you're going, are you an actual good student that's going to add to society type of thing? Is there a way you guys track that, or a way schools maybe should be tracking this in some capacity?
Well, yeah, tracking it is difficult. Grading this kind of project is difficult, but one of the things that we've added to the rhythm of our school is that we start every day in worship. So people ask us, do you have a chapel? No, we don't have a chapel. But we do start every day in worship. It's a liturgical worship. We separate it between the upper and the lower schools. So K through 6 on the one hand and grades 7 through 12 on the other hand. They do come together one morning per week to worship together, but it's an 8 to 10 minute liturgy. We start our day with prayer. We sing a lot in our school, and singing is formative. We think it's a vital aspect of our school. We require choir and music theory K through 12, not an option at our school. So we're singing hymnody. We are singing before lunch. Teachers are starting their classes with singing. So that's part of the rhythm of our school life. We also have Bible memory and catechism that we do on a weekly basis. We're trying to get the Word of God into our students. We're trying to get it into their memory so that, at the end of, if you're here K through 12, you'll go through a particular cycle of Westminster Shorter Catechism and Scripture. You'll go through it 4 times. It's a 3-year cycle. You'll go through it 4 times. These are some of the ways that we're trying. Other ways are, we have service, we do work, and we have service. So, service can be simply helping around the school building. It can be tutoring a younger student. These are some ways that the virtue formation reveals itself. Are students volunteering to do that? Are they willing to come and help? Are they quick to repent when they sin? And of course, that happens from time to time in a school, yeah, even in a Christian school, right? These are some of the ways, but to reduce it to a grade, I think is really challenging. I think it's really, really challenging. We are grading, sort of insights. If you're being asked to interact with a particular piece of literature, poetry, we're trying to gauge. Our teachers are trying to gauge the insights that are coming there. Are they hitting on virtues? Are they hitting on ways in which this might play out in their life? Are they hitting on things where they see that there's a particular lesson I can draw from this text? There's a lesson about courage, and you know what? I lacked courage in this particular situation, but now I see the congruence. And you know what? I have an opportunity to write about this on an exam in class, right? A handwritten essay or something. We can track it to some degree those ways, but I don't think it's reducible to student got an A, ergo they got the virtue award.
That would be really difficult. And I'm trying to think about, how you would keep track of that. I mean, is it something then at the end of the day, a student's do they not get grades, like letter grades at y'all's school?
No, they do. They do. We do give letter grades. In the younger years, we're giving more narrative feedback. So a lot of that is, and of course, let me just kind of step back. We're a small enough school, and our teachers have been here long enough that they know students. You see trends. There's nothing new under the sun, and so they know where students are tempted to cut some corners here, and those are conversation. Those are opportunities for conversations. Hey, what does this say about? What does Scripture say about this? Or should you be cutting this particular corner? How are you treating your neighbor? Right. These are conversations that can come up in the context of class, and when you're a discussion-based model, like many classical Christian schools are, I can't say all, but I'll say many are, there are opportunities to kind of flush some of these things out in the context of your class. So if you're having a lecture, maybe not as much, but if you're having a Socratic discussion, some of these things are just naturally raised either by the text or by another student sitting around the table discussing the text. And then the teacher's attuned and can kind of pick up and see. Again, we're a small enough school that observationally we can pick up on a lot of trends, and we can say we probably need to address that.
I like that because I know for me, I was homeschooled my whole life, but I was not a good test taker.
Mm-hmm.
I was good in all the other things. I feel like I started to crack under pressure when it came to like these tests where I was like, oh, I don't know these. I remember even taking the SAT, for instance, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't remember I remember doing this, but I don't remember it from like a year or two ago when I learned it. I remember specifically with sine, cosine, and tangent. And I was like, oh my goodness, I learned this a few years ago. But knowing like, obviously my mom knows me pretty well and knows like, oh, you do know this material well, or you're doing really good in this area. That's very different. It's very one-on-one type of teaching. But I'm assuming your teachers, obviously, like you just said, they know your students really well. They know, like, little Johnny's doing really good here, right, and so I'm going to give him this grade because he's doing really well in that area.
Yeah, well, and I don't want it to come across like we're not grading assignments or conventional sorts of assignments. We are giving tests, we are giving essays, right? We are grading those things. So if I'm giving that impression, let me kind of double back here to say we are giving grades. I think what I'm trying to communicate is that those grades are not the penultimate thing or the penultimate concern in our school. We talk a lot about excellence here, and we've described that a number of ways. We have said, well, what we know it's not is not perfection, right? We're not looking for perfection here. We are looking for excellence, and that means in some ways maximizing your God-given capacities and abilities and not letting them sort of wither on the vine. And that's going to mean you're going to have to push. We are a challenging school in that way. We have a substantive volume of work that is expected of our students. We're asking them to think, and they have to hone those particular faculties of mind. And in that challenge, this is partly where the virtue is built, right? Everybody's going to struggle at some point. We're all going to have some wall that we run up against. In the school, it's going to be an assignment, or it's going to be a class, or it's going to be a particular teacher, whatever the case might be. You don't just get to duck and run from that, right? You don't. So the academic component of this is, yes, it's important, but it's not the penultimate thing.
Hey, I just want to take a really quick break from the podcast to highlight one of our amazing partners and sponsors, ClassReach. If you're a new school administrator or founder and are struggling to keep up with all the hassles of planting a new school, like collecting tuition, communicating with parents, or handling student data, then you need ClassReach. ClassReach is the all-in-one software that helps with everything from admissions and tuition to classroom management and parent communications. Sign up for a free consultation with one of their school specialists and see how ClassReach can help your school grow today. You guys can check them out online, classreach.com. They are a kingdom-minded company, and I love their leadership team there. I've become friends with a lot of them. They truly are a great company. I support them, and I love them, and you guys will love them too. Check them out at classreach.com. Now, back to the show. It's good. What would you say then for a school, whether they're classical, not classical, listening in, for any just like tips or suggestions on that process? Obviously you guys are doing testing. I'm assuming, are you guys doing CLT? Is that part of what you
we
guys
do?
are
Yes,
doing?
we are a CLT school. Yes. Yep.
Do you recommend anything specifically for like these schools that, I mean, you've been doing this a while. So like any suggestions for teachers, again, classical or non-classical, when it comes to testing and to making sure their students are moving in the right direction that you've maybe come to see or notice in your years in education?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I'll tell you, we don't do it. Speaking of standardized tests, we're not doing test prep for those standardized tests. We're allowing, hopefully, the curriculum and the home. I mean, what we can't forget is that the home of the student is vitally important in their education. The habits that they're fostering in the home, and we say to our families, we say, read with your kids, read often, expose them to language. Their vocabulary grows before they can even, read the book themselves. Like, so spend that time. It is well worth it to read and read often with your children. We think that pays dividends. There's enough statistics. Don't ask me to cite one right now because I can't, but I just know that there's enough evidence to suggest that reading to your children at very young ages is going to help with their facility in language, their understanding of vocabulary, which then helps them in all sorts of ways academically. From, we're not just talking humanities, but even in math and science. And anecdotally, we've seen that bear out in many, many cases within our school.
I love reading to my kids, and they always love to be read to. And so I read all these different stories, but I have this thought, and literally I just had this thought again 2 days ago, where one of my favorite, I love Dr. Seuss books. Yep. And so my son brings over the Sneetches, which is probably one of my favorite of the Dr. Seuss's, the Sneetches with the star belly Sneetches and all this stuff on their bellies. And I'm reading it, and I do the same thing every time. I'm like, these words are not English. Like, some of these words are just completely made up by Dr. Seuss. And I'm like, is this helping with your vocabulary? In my head as a father, I'm like, you're hearing words that are not real words. What would your take be on those words?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm going to abstain from actually answering that question, but I would say, generally speaking, even if the kid can recognize that it's a nonsense word, you're probably in a good position.
Okay, good, because I mean, he's never tried to use those words. I'll at least say that he doesn't try and say. I'm spacing it because all of them have weird made up words, and all the different ones they add extra letters to make it rhyme. But I do love a good Dr. Seuss book. Yeah. But we just started reading the You'd Be So Proud of Me, Anthony. I bought the oh my goodness, it's the Hundreds of Stories, and really old, and the Tortoise and the Hare.
Aesop?
The Aesop's Fables. Thank you. I bought a beautiful little like hardcover Aesop's Fable from Barnes and Noble, and he's been like loving those. So I've been trying to give him like these little stories, and I love it when he's 6. Yep. So I love when he'll reference one, which is kind of blows my mind a little bit. Be like, Dad, it's kind of like the tortoise and the hare, or it's kind of like the fox trying to get the grapes, or something. Like, he'll reference it. I'm like, All right, I'm pretty
Yeah.
impressed that you were paying attention enough to that little story.
Well, there you go. There you go. So, yeah, the stories are formative, right? Even fables, maybe even particularly fables. So, yeah, continue to do that. Continue to read and interact with your children. Yeah, that's been a it's been a great way to connect as a family for us. And my kids are a little bit older now, so I have one at the upper end of high school, and my youngest is at the upper end of grammar school, but we would do it all over again the same way, which is spend time, read out loud, enjoy books, help foster their imagination, and their attentiveness. I think one of the problems we're seeing, and you've heard this, and it's all over the internet and social media, but you know, technology is taking away the ability to attend and to pay attention to things, and I think we have a place both as a school, but certainly in our families, in helping to foster the habit of attention. It's necessary in education. It's not going to go well if we can't harness. And I'm not talking about the outliers, where there might be some real challenge with attention necessarily, but the sort of the ways in which we are, maybe inadvertently, but again, the data is there to suggest that we're doing things that are helping expedite that decrease in attentiveness, and I think we need to counteract that as best we're able.
Yeah, I agree. And you're talking more so like if your student or your kid, going back to the whole part of like your kid having a hard time, like instead of just giving them the iPad or giving them this thing,
Right.
like, okay, good. Now they're good. But it's educational. It's what they're learning, something educational in there, instead of going like, no, like try and do something else where it's okay for them to be bored. That's the thing I've definitely struggled with as a father from time to time, is like reminding myself it's okay for him to be bored. Like I remember being bored growing up, and that was when creativity just took over, and I got to do, like, I did all these cool things.
Yeah.
And so he'll say that, I mean, he'll be like, I'm bored. I'm like, how is this kid bored? All these toys that you have over here,
Yeah.
And so he typically gets pretty creative when he gets to the point where like, oh, there's nothing to play with except my imagination.
Right. Yeah. Allow that to blossom. And of course, like, for adults, we're not immune to this problem ourselves, right? We know that our attention is taken in a number of different directions, and so this is as much a reminder to myself as it is to whomever might be listening to this podcast.
Yeah, well,
Right.
I mean, I know for myself, and I'm again preaching to the choir. Of course,
Right.
if I'm sitting at a restaurant waiting, I'm typically going to pull out my phone. Like you're typically going to say, "Oh, I'm bored. Let me pull out my phone." Instead, like think about what we did. Gosh, only 20 years ago, whatever, 10, 20 years ago, where you just sat in the looking around, talking to the person next to you. And my wife and I were walking through this thing yesterday called a mall. I don't know if people even know what malls are anymore. We were walking.
I was at the mall the other day.
So we're walking through, we're passing by, like we live in South Florida, so we're walking like this in Palm Beach County, which is like there's lots of money in Palm Beach County, I was like, so you're walking through this mall and you're saying passing Prada, Coach bags, I'm spacing it, all these other ones that are really expensive. And literally look inside, nobody's in them except the employees, and they're all on their phones. We kind of started making a joke. We're like, look inside that store, nobody's in there, all the employees are on their phones. And I was like, man, slow day at the mall today, which sounds like a typical mall, but like, we just go to our phones.
Have you ever been in a store where you've asked for help and it's like you're just interrupting whoever's working there because they're so glued to their phone? It's like, oh, how dare you ask me
you're inconveniencing me.
Yeah. It's a really bizarre feeling.
Let's hope that students never have that with, well, obviously we hope that never happens with their parents, but let's say definitely don't want it to happen with their teachers. Like, hey teacher, I have a question. You're like, hold on, I'm playing Candy Crush. Give me a second,
Yeah. That would not bode well.
That's good.
It would be one of those disconnects that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. No thanks.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, Anthony, I know you've been in this for a while. I would love, we've had some advice on this. We'll kind of wrap it up with, I want one final piece of advice. If you can wrap it up into one final, you can take as much time as you need on it. But if you were to share one final piece of advice with the school leaders listening, what would that final piece of advice be?
Yeah, I think this is something that I'm telling myself, which is it's good to be content, but it's not great to be complacent. And I think there's always room to move the needle. Remember that we're serving families, we're serving students, and ultimately we're serving God. And so we don't necessarily want to rest on our laurels or become complacent in the work that we're doing, but we should be thinking, faithfully and creatively about how to best deliver on the promises and the missions and the visions of our school, such that we can really maximize those missions and visions. And so, just don't rest on what you've done or where you've been, but you continue to push forward in faith and recognize that there are ways in which improvement can be attained, however slowly.
Awesome. Well, Anthony, thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you guys are in the middle of the school year and everything. So thanks for taking time out of your day to hop on the podcast and talk to our listeners. Wishing you guys nothing but the best as you continue on with the rest of the school year.
It's been good, Mitchell. Thanks for having me.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Anthony for taking time and being on the podcast today. I love what he's doing over there in Delaware, and I'm wishing him nothing but the best as they continue to grow and educate the next generation that's coming behind us. And as always, I'm hoping you guys were able to take at least one thing from today's episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Before you guys go for today, if you hear me out just for another minute to a minute and a half, we have 3 free resources available here at School Success we want to make sure you are not missing out on. Well, the first one you're already taking advantage of, which is the podcast. We are dropping episodes every single Monday morning, and we want to make sure you're not missing them. So please be subscribed. And if you love our content, we would love a 5-star review, who truly would mean the world to myself and our team. The second free resource is on our website, schoolsuccessmakers.com. Top right-hand corner, there's a button, the School Success Report, which is emailed directly to your inbox every single week with different articles the teams have either written or found online to help you, the school leader, be more successful. And we want to make sure you are not missing out on that one as well. And last but not least is our free Facebook community called School Success Makers. We know community is so incredibly important. We want to make sure you have that and you're not just trying to go at this all by yourself. So go join the community. I'm personally in there. Would love to get to know you and your school and what you guys are doing. So go join that and I'll see you in there. And we will be back here next week with another awesome guest as usual on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Herzog Foundation.